The holographic projection materialized above the United Nations General Assembly Hall with such sudden precision that for several seconds nobody moved. It was 3:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when the first extraterrestrial communication began, not with weapons or invasion ships, but with a clinical, almost bureaucratic display of technological superiority. Dr. Elena Rodriguez gripped the edges of her workstation at the Quantum Computational Research Center in Buenos Aires, her dark eyes locked on the multiple screens displaying global news feeds. The alien interface was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, a crystalline, multi-dimensional projection that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple states of complexity. Planetary classification protocol initiated, a voice announced, not in any human language, but in a universal translation that seemed to bypass auditory processing and aimed directly into the listener's cognitive centers. In New York, diplomats from 193 nations sat frozen. Some reached for communication devices, others for emergency protocols. The massive holographic display began scanning, categorizing, measuring every aspect of human civilization with a cold, mathematical precision that felt more like an autopsy than a first encounter. Simultaneously, in a small apartment in Tokyo, Miguel Santos was live-streaming his street music when the alien interface momentarily flickered across his broadcasting equipment. His fingers, moving instinctively across his guitar strings, began playing a complex rhythmic pattern that was part musical improvisation, part mathematical exploration. What happened next would become known as the resonance incident. The alien scanning interface began to glitch. Quantum algorithms designed to categorize and predict human behavior suddenly fractured. Miguel's music, a spontaneous blend of Brazilian bossa nova, quantum wave mathematics, and pure emotional expression, created harmonic disruptions in the alien's computational matrix. Anomaly detected. The translation interface stuttered. Predictive models compromised. At the UN, Ambassador Christine Rice watched in disbelief as the holographic display began to fragment, its perfect geometric patterns breaking into chaotic, unpredictable shapes. The alien system was encountering something it couldn't process, human creativity in its most raw, unfiltered form. Dr. Rodriguez's research team had been monitoring global communication networks. They noticed the first signs of the breakdown immediately. Standard communication protocols were being rewritten in real time, not through technological intervention, but through something far more complex: collective human imagination. Social media platforms exploded. Within minutes, millions of users were sharing observations, creating memes, developing collaborative theories about the alien encounter. What should have been a moment of global terror became a worldwide problem-solving session. The Zarn Collective, the civilization behind the encounter, had spent millennia developing computational systems that could predict and categorize intelligent life. Their technology was based on absolute logical certainty, mathematical precision, and predetermined evolutionary patterns. They had never encountered humanity. Miguel Santos continued playing, unaware that his music was causing more disruption than any military defense could. His live stream, now watched by millions, became a global focal point of resistance and curiosity. The subject demonstrates nonlinear cognitive resonance. The alien interface reported, its perfect translation now showing signs of confusion. Computational models, insufficient. In research labs, government facilities, and home offices around the world, humans began to do what they did best: adapt, innovate, and imagine the impossible. Dr. Rodriguez made a critical observation. The alien scanning technology wasn't just measuring human civilization. It was trying to understand it. And in that attempt to understand, it was revealing more about itself than about humanity. A holographic display continued its scan, but now it was changing. What began as a clinical categorization was transforming into something else, a dynamic, living representation of human potential that the Zarn Collective could never have anticipated. First contact was not a moment of invasion or submission. It was a collision of fundamentally different forms of intelligence, one based on rigid computational logic, the other on boundless creativity and unpredictability. And humanity was just getting started. As night fell across different time zones, the world watched and waited. The alien interface remained, its perfect geometric patterns now dancing with chaotic, unpredictable energy, a metaphor for the encounter itself. The initial classification was clear. Humanity was about to redefine everything the universe thought it knew about intelligence. The Zarn Collective's primary research vessel, the Quantum Nexus, hung in Earth's orbit like a crystalline nightmare. Inside its main computational chamber, lead analyst Krickstall watched in mounting horror as human behavior continued to defy every known scientific model. "Impossible," Krickstall muttered, mandibles clicking with frustration. The collective's most advanced predictive algorithms were collapsing under the weight of human unpredictability. In a small apartment in Tokyo, 16-year-old Akira Tanaka wasn't thinking about saving humanity. He was trying to beat the final level of Quantum Chaos, an obscure video game he'd been debugging for weeks. His modified game controller, a Frankenstein's monster of circuit boards, salvaged smartphone components, and pure teenage ingenuity, sat before him like a technological sculpture. As Akira's fingers danced across the controller, something extraordinary happened. The Zarn's scanning interface, which had been attempting to categorize human behavior, suddenly received a transmission, not through any official communication channel, but through the game's proprietary network. It was a series of input sequences that should have been meaningless, but weren't. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was the first to notice the anomaly. Her monitoring systems at the Quantum Computational Research Center picked up the unusual data pattern. She watched in real time as the alien interface began to respond to what appeared to be a video game input stream. "This is impossible," she whispered. On the Quantum Nexus, Krickstall's neural interfaces began to overload. The transmission from Earth, from a single point source that seemed to be both a communication device and a recreational interface, was breaking down every predictive model they had constructed over millennia. At a kindergarten in Sao Paulo, something equally remarkable was occurring. A group of 5-year-olds, working on an art project, had created a massive collaborative drawing. What looked like random crayon scribbles to their teacher was actually a complex visual representation of quantum information transfer. The Zarn's computational systems began to fracture. Their entire technological civilization was built on the premise of absolute predictability. Every species they had encountered could be reduced to mathematical patterns, behavioral algorithms, evolutionary trajectories. Humanity was different. Humanity was chaos given form, creativity given purpose. Akira had no idea he was communicating with an alien civilization. He was just trying to debug a game, pushing the boundaries of the controller's capabilities. Each button press was a potential communication, each sequence a unique mathematical language that the Zarn could not comprehend. Dr. Rodriguez assembled a team, not of traditional scientists, but of people who represented human creativity in its most diverse forms. A street musician, a teenage game developer, a kindergarten art teacher, a quantum physicist, a social media influencer. "We're not going to fight them," she explained during their first meeting. "We're going to make them understand us." The Zarn leadership began to fragment. Some advocated for immediate destruction of the human civilization. A threat that could not understand was a threat that must be eliminated. Others, like the junior analyst Fornax, argued for further study. "They are not following any known evolutionary pattern," Fornax reported. "Their computational approach is organic, dynamic, impossible to predict." In the kindergarten, the children continued their art project, completely unaware that their random crayon strokes were being analyzed by the most advanced computational system in the known galaxy. Akira completed the game level, unknowingly sending another complex communication sequence to the alien vessel. The Zarn Collective was experiencing something unprecedented, a complete breakdown of their understanding of intelligence. Humanity was not just a species to be categorized. Humanity was a living, breathing computational anomaly. And they had no idea how to process that reality. As night fell across different time zones, the world continued its unexpected dialogue with an alien civilization that was rapidly discovering how little it actually understood about intelligence, creativity, and the nature of consciousness itself. The world transformed into a massive, distributed defense network almost overnight. Social media platforms became war rooms. Gaming servers turned into communication grids. Streaming channels became intelligence-sharing networks. Humanity was fighting back, not with traditional weapons, but with the most powerful tool in its arsenal, collective creativity. Miguel Santos stood at the center of a makeshift research facility in Buenos Aires, his guitar now connected to a complex array of quantum computing equipment. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in amazement as his musical compositions created harmonic disruptions in the alien scanning technologies. "It's like the music is a form of code," she explained to her team. "Each note, each rhythm, is a computational sequence that the aliens can't predict." The Zarn Collective had anticipated military resistance. They had prepared for nuclear weapons, coordinated governmental responses, technological counterattacks. What they hadn't prepared for was a global, decentralized network of human creativity. In Tokyo, Akira Tanaka and a network of teenage game developers began weaponizing their coding skills. They created adaptive algorithms that could change their computational signature faster than the alien systems could track. What began as a video game debugging session became a critical line of defense. A group of street artists in Rio de Janeiro discovered that their collaborative murals, when photographed and digitally processed, created quantum interference patterns that disrupted alien communication channels. What looked like abstract art was actually a sophisticated form of technological warfare. The Zarn leadership watched in growing horror. "They are transforming every technological and cultural system into a potential weapon," reported Vornax, the junior analyst who had become increasingly fascinated by human potential. Krickstol, the lead researcher, could only watch as humanity demonstrated a form of adaptive intelligence that defied every known scientific model. Each attempt to categorize or suppress human creativity only seemed to make it stronger, more complex, more unpredictable. Dr. Rodriguez's team had transformed the world's largest data centers into a massive distributed computing system. By linking servers across continents, they created a neural network that could adapt and respond faster than any centralized system. "We're not fighting," Dr. Rodriguez explained during a global broadcast. "We're communicating in a language the aliens have never encountered before, the language of human potential." The kindergarten art project from Sao Paulo had evolved. The children's seemingly random drawings were now being analyzed by quantum computers, revealing complex communication patterns that the Zarn could not understand. Miguel Santos discovered that his music could do more than just disrupt alien technologies. By combining specific musical sequences with quantum computational techniques, he could actually send coded messages through the alien scanning systems. Across the globe, humanity was transforming. Every technological system became a potential weapon. Social media influencers shared defensive strategies. Gamers developed adaptive communication protocols. Artists created visual languages that confounded alien computational models. The Zarn had expected a traditional conflict. Instead, they found themselves engaged in a war of imagination, creativity, and collective intelligence. "They are not a species," Krickstol reported to the Zarn leadership. "They are a living, adaptive computational system, and we have no defense against their primary weapon, unpredictability." As the first week of the encounter concluded, one thing became clear: humanity was not going to be categorized, controlled, or conquered. They were going to redefine the very concept of intelligence itself. The global crowdsourcing event began almost by accident. It started with a live stream from Dr. Elena Rodriguez, broadcast simultaneously across every major social media platform, scientific network, and communication channel. Her message was simple yet revolutionary. Humanity is our greatest algorithm. Within hours, a global team formed. a network of individuals so diverse it defied traditional scientific collaboration. A street artist from Johannesburg worked alongside a quantum physicist from Moscow. A teenage game developer in Mumbai collaborated with a neuroscientist in Sao Paulo. A kindergarten teacher in Buenos Aires contributed ideas that stumped Nobel laureates. The Zarn Collective watched in absolute bewilderment. Their most advanced artificial intelligence, designated Z9, began to experience what could only be described as a digital nervous breakdown. Each time it attempted to predict human behavior, the computational models would fracture, rebuild, and collapse in increasingly complex patterns. Impossible, Z9 repeated, its quantum processors spinning through increasingly elaborate failure modes. On the quantum nexus, Krikstal observed the unfolding phenomenon with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration. Humanity wasn't just resisting. They were transforming the very nature of intelligence itself. Miguel Santos discovered that his music could now generate computational sequences that acted like living code. Each musical composition was a potential communication protocol, a mathematical language that evolved in real time. What began as street performance had become a critical form of interspecies communication. The neural networks humans were creating defied every known principle of computational science. They were adaptive, self-modifying, and driven by something the Zarn could not comprehend: pure, unbridled creativity. In a small research lab in Tokyo, Akira Tanaka and his team of young developers created what they called adaptive response algorithms. These were computational systems that could change their fundamental structure faster than any monitoring system could track. It was less a piece of software and more a living, breathing computational organism. The Zarn's attempts to suppress human innovation backfired spectacularly. Every constraint they attempted to place on human communication networks only sparked more innovative responses. Governmental firewalls became playgrounds of digital creativity. Restricted communication channels transformed into complex problem-solving platforms. Vornax, the junior Zarn analyst, began to argue for a completely new approach to understanding humanity. They are not a species to be categorized, he reported to the leadership. They are a dynamic, living computational system that defines itself through constant reinvention. The kindergarten art project had evolved into a global phenomenon. The seemingly random drawings created by 5-year-olds were now being analyzed as complex quantum communication protocols. What looked like childish scribbles were actually sophisticated information transfer systems that the Zarn's most advanced technologies could not decode. Dr. Rodriguez realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in its individual capabilities, but in its ability to collaborate, to transform, to imagine beyond existing limitations. We are not fighting, she explained during a global broadcast. We are communicating in a language of pure potential. The Zarn Collective found themselves facing a fundamental crisis. Their entire civilization was built on the premise of predictability, of understanding and controlling intelligent systems. Humanity represented something entirely new. An intelligence that found strength in chaos, in unpredictability, in the constant reimagining of what was possible. As the first month of the encounter concluded, one thing became terrifyingly clear to the Zarn. Humanity was not a problem to be solved. Humanity was a new form of intelligence that was about to redefine everything the universe thought it knew about consciousness, creativity, and potential. The transformation was subtle at first, then suddenly overwhelming. Humanity began to develop a communication method that was less a technology and more a living language of pure creativity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of this revolution, her quantum research facility now looking more like a global artistic collaborative than a traditional scientific institution. Miguel Santos discovered that his music was more than just sound, it was a complex quantum communication protocol. Each note generated computational sequences that could penetrate and interact with the alien technological infrastructure. What had begun as street performances was now a critical method of interspecies communication. The Zarn Collective watched in growing terror as humanity demonstrated capabilities that defied every known principle of scientific understanding. They are rewriting the fundamental laws of computational intelligence. Vornax reported, his own neural interfaces struggling to process the implications. Akira Tanaka and his network of young developers had transformed the world's digital infrastructure into a living, breathing computational organism. Social media platforms became complex problem-solving networks. Gaming servers turned into adaptive communication grids. Streaming channels became intelligent sharing platforms. Every human discipline became a weapon of innovation. Abstract artists created visual languages that confounded alien scanning technologies. Musicians generated computational sequences through sound. Dancers developed movement protocols that acted as complex communication systems. Mathematicians and poets worked side by side, creating languages that existed between logic and imagination. The kindergarten art project had become a global phenomenon. The seemingly random drawings created by 5-year-olds were now recognized as sophisticated quantum communication protocols. Children who had been drawing with crayons were now actively participating in humanity's most complex defense system. Dr. Rodriguez developed a breakthrough that would change everything. She discovered that human creativity could be understood as a form of quantum communication, a language that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Traditional computational systems worked in binary, yes or no, on or off. Human creativity existed in a state of constant possibility. The Czarn leadership began to fracture. Some advocated for the immediate destruction of human civilization. A threat they could not understand was a threat that must be eliminated. Others, like Vornax, argued for further study. The junior analyst had become increasingly fascinated by human potential. They are not following any known evolutionary pattern, Vornax reported. Their computational approach is organic, dynamic, impossible to predict. Miguel Santos' music became a critical communication tool. By combining specific musical sequences with quantum computational techniques, he could send coded messages through the alien scanning systems. What had once been street performances were now complex interspecies communications. The global collaborative network continued to expand. A street artist in Rio de Janeiro could now directly communicate with a quantum physicist in Moscow through a language of pure creativity. A kindergarten teacher in Buenos Aires contributed ideas that stumped Nobel laureates. The boundaries between disciplines, between individuals, between species were dissolving. Krickstol, the lead Czarn researcher, could only watch in growing horror and reluctant admiration. Humanity was demonstrating a form of adaptive intelligence that defied every known scientific model. They are not a species, Krickstol reported to the Czarn leadership. They are a living, adaptive computational system that defines itself through constant reinvention. As the encounter entered its second month, one thing became terrifyingly clear. Humanity was not going to be categorized, controlled, or conquered. They were going to redefine the very concept of intelligence itself, a quantum leap of imagination that would forever change the universe's understanding of consciousness, creativity, and potential. The moment of true transformation began with a global broadcast that nobody could have anticipated. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a network that spanned every communication platform on Earth and beyond. Behind her, a massive display showed a complex tapestry of human creativity. Art, music, scientific formulas, dance, poetry, all interconnected in a living, breathing computational landscape. "We are not fighting," she announced. "We are communicating." The Czarn Collective's technological infrastructure began to crumble under the weight of human creativity. What had begun as a simple encounter was now a complete inversion of everything the alien civilization understood about intelligence. A group of elementary school children became the unexpected heroes of the encounter. Their seemingly random art project, a massive collaborative drawing that covered an entire school gymnasium, was now being analyzed as a complex quantum communication protocol that the Czarn's most advanced technologies could not decode. Miguel Santos' music had evolved into something beyond sound. Each musical composition was a living computational sequence, a language that could penetrate and interact with the alien technological systems. Street performances had become critical methods of interspecies communication. Akira Tanaka and his global network of young developers had transformed the world's digital infrastructure into a living, adaptive system. What looked like ordinary social media and gaming platforms were now sophisticated defense mechanisms that could change their fundamental structure faster than any monitoring system could track. The Zarn leadership watched in absolute terror. Vornax, the junior analyst who had become humanity's most ardent observer, presented a revolutionary report. They are not a species to be controlled, he argued. They are a dynamic, living computational system that defines itself through constant reimagination. Dr. Rodriguez and her team had been captured by the Zarn, transported to the quantum nexus, their primary research vessel. But capture was a meaningless concept when dealing with human creativity. Within hours of their imprisonment, the research team had begun to transform the alien vessel from the inside out. Krixtel, the lead Zarn researcher, experienced something close to panic. The human prisoners were not attempting to escape. They were actively rewriting the fundamental systems of the quantum nexus, turning the most advanced technological vessel in the known universe into a collaborative problem-solving platform. The global human network continued to expand and evolve. A street artist in Johannesburg could now directly communicate with a quantum physicist in Moscow through a language of pure creativity. A kindergarten teacher in Buenos Aires was contributing ideas that stumped Nobel laureates. The boundaries between disciplines, between individuals, between species were dissolving. The Zarn's attempt to categorize and control had backfired spectacularly. Every constraint they attempted to place on human communication only sparked more innovative responses. Restricted communication channels transformed into complex problem-solving platforms. Governmental firewalls became playgrounds of digital creativity. Miguel Santos discovered that his music could generate computational sequences that acted like living code. Each musical composition was a potential communication protocol, a mathematical language that evolved in real time. The kindergarten art project had become a global phenomenon. The seemingly random drawings created by 5-year-olds were now recognized as sophisticated quantum communication protocols that could penetrate and disrupt the most advanced alien technologies. As the encounter reached its critical point, one thing became terrifyingly clear to the Zarn Collective. Humanity was not a species to be studied or conquered. Humanity was a new form of intelligence that was about to redefine everything the universe thought it knew about consciousness, creativity, and potential. The great inversion was complete. Humanity was no longer responding to the alien encounter. It was directing it. The confrontation was nothing like anyone had expected. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before the Zarn Collective's High Council, not as a prisoner, but as a representative of a form of intelligence that defied every known scientific model. Behind her, a holographic display showed the intricate living network of human creativity, a computational system that was simultaneously art, science, communication, and pure potential. Intelligence is not a fixed state, she began. It's a dynamic, constantly evolving process of imagination. Miguel Santos sat beside her, his guitar now a sophisticated communication device that could generate quantum computational sequences more complex than the Zarn's most advanced technologies. The street musician had become a critical translator between species, his music a language that existed beyond sound, beyond traditional communication. Vornax, the junior Zarn analyst who had become humanity's most ardent advocate, presented a revolutionary report that shook the foundations of the collective's understanding. Humanity, he explained, is not a species to be categorized. It is a living, adaptive computational system that defines itself through constant reimagination. The Zarn leadership watched in a state of profound cognitive dissonance. Their entire civilization was built on the premise of predictability, of understanding and controlling intelligent systems. Humanity represented something entirely new, an intelligence that found strength in chaos, in unpredictability, in the constant reimagining of what was possible. Akira Tanaka and his global network of young developers had transformed the confrontation into a collaborative problem-solving session. What looked like a potential conflict was now a complex exchange of computational languages, with humanity teaching the Zarn an entirely new way of understanding intelligence. The kindergarten art project, those seemingly random drawings created by 5-year-olds, was now recognized as a sophisticated quantum communication protocol. Children who had been drawing with crayons were now actively participating in humanity's most complex interspecies dialogue. Krikstal, the lead Zarn researcher, experienced a fundamental breakdown of everything they had ever understood about intelligent life. They are rewriting the fundamental laws of computational intelligence, Krikstal reported, neural interfaces struggling to process the implications. Dr. Rodriguez's presentation was a masterpiece of interdisciplinary communication. She demonstrated how human creativity was a form of quantum intelligence that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Traditional computational systems worked in binary, yes or no, on or off. Human creativity existed in a state of constant possibility. The holographic display behind her showed a living, breathing representation of human potential. Abstract art that contained complex mathematical formulas. Musical compositions that were also computational sequences. Dance movements that communicated scientific concepts. Poetry that generated quantum communication protocols. Miguel Santos began to play. His music was more than sound. It was a complex language that could penetrate the most advanced alien technological systems. Each note generated computational sequences that challenged and expanded the Zarn's understanding of communication. The Zarn High Council found themselves in an unprecedented situation. They were no longer the observers, they had become the students. Vornak stepped forward. Humanity is not a problem to be solved, he argued. Humanity is a new form of intelligence that will redefine our understanding of consciousness, creativity, and potential. The confrontation was transforming into something entirely unexpected, a collaborative reimagining of intelligence itself. As the presentation concluded, one thing became absolutely clear. The encounter was never about conflict. It was about communication. It was about understanding a form of intelligence that could not be contained, categorized, or controlled, only appreciated, respected, and learned from. Humanity had not just survived the encounter. They had fundamentally changed the universe's understanding of what it meant to be intelligent. The universe breathed differently now. 1 year after the initial encounter, humanity had become more than a species. It was a living, dynamic intelligence that redefined galactic civilization. The Zarn Collective, once the most technologically advanced civilization in known space, now sat as humble students to human creativity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the Galactic Collaborative's main chamber, a space that had been redesigned to reflect the new understanding of intelligence. Behind her, a massive holographic display pulsed with the intricate network of human potential, a living, breathing computational system that defied every previous understanding of consciousness. Intelligence is not a destination, she declared to the assembled representatives of multiple galactic civilizations. It's a continuous journey of imagination. The chamber itself was a testament to humanity's transformative power. Where once there were rigid geometric structures, now organic, adaptive spaces shifted and changed, reflecting the lessons learned from human creativity. The Zarn's crystal-like technologies had been reimagined, softened, made more fluid and responsive. Krikstal, the lead Zarn researcher who had once sought to categorize humanity, now stood as a primary advocate for the new galactic understanding. The rigid computational systems that had defined their civilization had been completely dismantled and rebuilt. Miguel Santos sat nearby, his guitar, now a sophisticated interspecies communication device, resting beside him. The street musician who had accidentally disrupted alien scanning technologies during the first encounter was now a critical diplomatic translator. His music remained a language that existed beyond traditional communication, a bridge between different forms of intelligence. Vornax, the junior analyst who had first recognized humanity's potential, had become the primary architect of the new galactic protocols. The rigid classification systems that once defined intelligent life had been completely abandoned. "We were wrong," Vornax addressed the assembly. Intelligence is not about predictability. It's about potential. The kindergarten art project that had first confused the Zarn was now a foundational text in galactic communication studies. Those seemingly random crayon drawings had become a symbol of the most important lesson. True intelligence lies in the ability to see beyond established patterns. Akira Tanaka's adaptive communication networks had evolved into the primary method of interspecies collaboration. What had begun as a gaming network was now the most sophisticated communication system in the known universe. A living, breathing network that could adapt and respond in real time. The Zarn Collective had undergone a complete transformation. Their once rigid hierarchical structure had been replaced by a fluid, collaborative system inspired by human social networks. Creativity was now valued above computational precision. Dr. Rodriguez unveiled the most significant development, the Collaborative Intelligence Protocol. It was a new framework for understanding and approaching intelligent life, developed through the collective efforts of multiple species, but fundamentally shaped by human creativity. "We are not defining intelligence," she explained. "We are exploring it." The protocol rejected the old models of classification. Species were no longer measured by technological advancement or computational complexity, but by their capacity for imagination, adaptation, and collaborative potential. Miguel Santos began to play. His music filled the chamber, not just as sound, but as a complex communication protocol. Each note was a message, each rhythm a potential breakthrough. The assembled representatives from various galactic civilizations found themselves experiencing something beyond listening. They were participating in a form of communication that transcended traditional understanding. Vornax watched in wonder. The Zarn had learned that their greatest mistake was believing intelligence could be measured, categorized, or controlled. Humanity had shown them that true intelligence was a living, breathing, constantly evolving process. The Galactic Collaborative was more than a diplomatic body. It was a living network of potential, with humanity at its creative core. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked out at the assembled representatives. The universe had changed, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the simple, profound understanding that intelligence was about possibility. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to imagine something entirely new.